Alright, so it's been almost a month since Age of Mythology Retold came crashing back into our lives like a literal meteor from Zeus himself. But instead of causing mass destruction, the game has actually delivered a lot of nostalgic feels and I think quite a lot of positive reaction. Now, okay, you might be saying, look, it's not quite been a month yet, but if we add in the press time where I've been playing a little bit before it actually came out, then I've had plenty of time to marinate my thoughts. And today we're diving into this reimagined classic to see how it's held up, from fan reactions to potential franchise shifting impacts, and of course the roadmap to look into the future. Let's find out if this remaster was a return from the gods or a myth in the making. Since Age of Mythology has been out for quite some time yet, I thought I'd bring to your attention another similar kind of game. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to command Vikings or lead Anglo-Saxons into the battle? Well, coming soon to Rise of Kingdoms is just that. The most widely played multi-civilization strategy game, and they are celebrating their anniversary with a unique giveaway coming just for you guys. You're not just playing a game though, you're crafting a legacy. Choose your civilization, pick your heroes, and get ready to build a city that reflects your style. Cool, powerful, or a mix of both. Imagine managing your own slice of a massive world, teaming up with allies and engaging in battles that are strategic as they are thrilling. They are celebrating their anniversary with Clash of the Ages. So if you're ready to jump into the fray, download Rise of Kingdoms using the link below to join the anniversary celebration. Your download doesn't just give you a shot at awesome rewards, but it also gives you a giveaway pot for everybody because of this great anniversary. And your action could be one that tips the scales for a fellow gamer. So what are you waiting for? Be part of the action and be part of history. Download Rise of Kingdoms today, and let's make this anniversary one for the record books. Speaking of record books, Age of Mythology Retold has blasted past all of the competition. For those living under a rock for the last 2 decades, or more fittingly a massive boulder hauled by a cyclops, Age of Mythology is an RTS where you control ancient armies and call on the gods to do your dirty work. Whether it's summoning a kraken to sink your enemy's ships or calling down a literal meteor shower, the game blends history and mythology from the Greeks, Norse, Egyptians, and Atlanteans, all now with updated graphics and smoother gameplay. A fresh multiplayer system to take you online and embarrass yourself against players who have been doing this for the better half of 2 decades. But I know, Retold claims it's this new polished AI with shiny visuals, but is it actually enough to bring the classic back into the spotlight and give Age of Empires a run for its drachmas? Well, let's have a look at that. In terms of reviews, the fan feedback has been pretty positive. If we're talking about numbers, nothing says RTS success like a good old player count. When Age of Mythology Retold hit the scene, it was off to a pretty impressive start, quickly peaking at around 25 to 26,000 concurrent players on Steam. This makes it the 3rd highest launch among the world's edge recent RTS releases. What we're trying to say here is the remasters. Surpassing Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition, but not quite hitting the heights of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition and AoE 4, of course. But as expected with most new releases, this player base experienced a little bit of a dip after its initial surge. The average player count now is settled around 12,000, 13,000 for its 24-hour peak, at least at the most active times. Honestly, that's still pretty solid considering the game's long history and kind of niche genre still, especially since Age of Mythology was never quite as popular as Age of Empires in general. But whilst these numbers are promising, we've also seen some fluctuation due to some technical issues and bugs, especially in the multiplayer modes, which some players were quite quick to criticize. But despite the hiccups, the majority has been fairly positive. Retold is sitting comfortably around 90% reviews on Steam. Sure, there's been a little bit of drama. We'll get onto that. The Legacy Deity Portrait DLC was, probably a bit of a miss. But overall, the game's fresh visuals, improved gameplay, and nostalgic pull has clearly kept players invested. It's safe to say that Age of Mythology fans are enjoying a return to the godly mischief, just with maybe one eye on something in particular. Let's talk about that Legacy Deity Portrait pack. As some of the fans are calling it, the $6 trip down memory lane. This DLC came out with pretty much essentially just adding different pictures. Yeah, that is literally it. The original deity pictures or god icons from back in the original 2004 classic has now been put into the Retold edition, but they're charging $6 for it. Yeah, fans have been pretty vocal about this, leaving it at around a 16% approval rating, an incredibly low score on Steam for this DLC, and I'm going to be honest, I completely agree with it. The main gripe is it feels like we're being charged for recycled content that many have argued should be free. And this is where things get a bit spicy. For a game built on nostalgia, many feel that Microsoft have just missed the mark by monetizing such a small part of the old experience. Some love the retro vibe, but most fans see it as a bit of a cash grab. In fact, I think this is a real worry. It might be something small, but what it does indicate is there is still a lot of that corporal interference with a game that, well, is built by passionate developers and for passionate fans. But this is so out of left field that I think has gone under the radar because of the overall success, but it does worry me somewhat. Such a tiny little add-on for, well, a charged price that should have been free from the start. But let's talk about some of the other reviews. Players are loving the nostalgia, but there has been a little bit of a debate. For example, a reviewer called Ancient Heroes celebrates the upgraded visual, saying it's the same AOM we know and love, but polished to 2024 standards. On the flip side, Pharaoh's Fury calls out some remaining bugs. The AI still struggles in certain scenarios, which is disappointing for a remake. Multiplayer also gets some love though, with Norse Lover 88 saying, finally, no more lag and crashes mid-game, online feels a lot more stable. And all in all, it feels like a lot more prettier, stable, and a 2024 title that kind of is worthy of its predecessor. But something that hasn't really made it into the headlines is actually the console version, because, well, yeah, the gods of RTS have finally blessed console gamers, which, believe it or not, actually works fairly well. This is a historical real-time strategy, which is the equivalent of trying to juggle flaming swords with mittens on. It's never worked very, very well having RTS games on a controller. But an article from Ars Technica has come out saying that Retold does a surprisingly good job of making it playable in such a way. This is the first game in the Age of Empires and Age of Mythology franchise that has been released on both console and PC at the same time. So what is the secret to this? Instead of trying to cram PC-style commands onto a gamepad, the developers have smartly designed radial menus that streamline all of your divine destruction needs. Maybe you want to summon a god power or command your army to wreck your opponent's base. Now you can just spin the menu and go for it. Ars Technica even calls the system intuitive enough for newbies while still offering a depth for veterans. You also have the villager preset mode, where you can decide what resources they collect depending on what age you're in, kind of automating a lot of the process of villagers collecting, but completely being optional for the player, meaning that if you want to micromanage each individual person within your little settlement, you can do, or if you want to let them do their own thing to the optimum style of the age you're currently in, that can be done. The real magic is the way that the game develops the controls depending on what you're doing. Your button layout completely changes depending on whether you've selected a unit, a building, or one of the god powers. No more scrambling through awkward button combos, and the result is it feels like you're actually playing a great Age of Empires or Age of Mythology RTS experience without being on PC, which I think, do you know what, is a better feat than most have done in the past. We've seen it with titles like Halo Wars and, of course, Dawn of War and Company of Heroes that have tried to do something similar, but they've never quite accomplished that real PC feel on a console. And so far, the reviews are pretty positive. Hopefully, this means that we'll get more crossplay in the future. Because, you know, personally, as someone that only plays on PC, it doesn't really affect me. But building up a franchise and bringing in bigger audiences, especially a admittedly more casual audience like console players, I think can only be a positive thing for these games in general. Because we want more of them, right? Which means we need this audience to be bigger. But speaking of more stuff in the future, they've actually released a future roadmap. The gods are not done with us just yet. This newly revealed roadmap shows us what's in store for the game, including some exciting post-launch content, and, well, we're talking a lot of stuff coming soon. There's going to be a new game mode coming called the Arena of Gods, with a few hints at what that could be. I think it's going to be very much an arena-style RTS game mode, focused on these god powers and titans and mythical units. And we have Expansion 1 coming not too far off in the horizon in a few months' time. There is no indication what Expansion 1 and, of course, Expansion 2, which is distant on the roadmap, would be, but I'm guessing more god civilizations. Will they bring the Chinese god pack back? Well, they have already hinted that that could be a thing. If they bring it back as its own full expansion, I think that could be somewhat controversial since it wasn't too positive in the original Age of Mythology, but I'm hoping, just hoping, that we get to look into something a little bit more. Me personally, I'd like to see some more Celtic gods, something that no one's really looked into in the past. Druids and that sort of era. What about the Roman gods? Of course, they are so tantamount and so in conjunction with the Greek gods, but I think it could offer a different spin as well. And we know that they're prepared to go into the ancient stuff because we have Egypt as well. And of course, the Greeks, which granted are way more ancient than anything that the Romans have really ever done. So I'd love to see something along those lines. Or, of course, we've got Chinese gods, we've got Mongol gods. There's a lot of exciting stuff that maybe sits in the background that nobody really has entertained in the past, or even India. And, of course, the ancient Indian god lines and that sort of stuff could be such a unique twist on Age of Mythology and bring more light to some really underappreciated and really lore-rich, as if it's actually just not history. But this raises a bigger question as what's next for the franchise as a whole. Age of Empires has been incredibly successful, especially with their definitive editions and AoE 4, so it's safe to say that we're not done with seeing more of this in the future. Of course, we have all of the definitive editions now out for every single Age of Empires game, and of course Age of Mythology, so I think it's going to be a bit of a break in terms of all that kind of stuff, but each of these titles will be receiving more expansions. Of course, AoE 2 Definitive Edition is so popular. I think they're probably going to spend more time on AoE 3 Definitive Edition because it seems to have not quite got the love of the other games, but hey ho, the Mythology expansion packs should be introducing some great new cultures. Maybe things like Celts or the Mesopotamians, which I'm very, very excited for. But while personally I've been pretty much excited from the announcement of Age of Mythology even to now, there have been some hiccups along the way, and I'm very excited to see where the franchise goes next. Will it be an Age of Empires 5, or will we be seeing another spin-off much like AOM was for the original Age of Empires? That could be something that isn't too far in the future.